Fawn.
And Matt. We're an interracial couple with 2 kids, wanting to do something that highlights the power of friendship and what it means to be in the company of true friends. We're going to move our society away and out of the loneliness epidemic and into a friendlier, happier world. Welcome to our friendly world. Better, stronger, together.
Welcome back to our friendly world, everybody. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Okay, happy story. But first, here's the thing. Remember, even if you feel like you don't have anyone by your side or with you or anyone that has your back, if you feel alone for whatever reason in a particular situation, whatever it is, here's a lesson that I learned almost 10 years ago. All right, so at a time when I thought we had some really great friends, things happened. I don't want to get into it, but bad things happened. And all of a sudden, all the friends disappeared.
Whoosh.
Like all of my friends anyway.
Whoosh.
And it was when Matt got in a horrible situation, got sick. And all of a sudden, I was at the hospital and I thought for sure these best friends of mine will have my back, will be there for us. They flat out disappeared, guys. Every single one, like poof, gone. Never heard from them again. And while this was happening, so know that I was dealing with grief. Matt was dealing with things. The kids were dealing with grief and things. And it was pretty life altering. It totally shook my everything from my core. It cracked my faith in everything. And I was kind of in a free fall state. And that's when I turned to one of my, like a colleague, I guess you would call her. Anyway, I studied spiritual response therapy like many decades ago. And one of the things that's great is I can turn to other fellow therapists. And that's what I did like back then when all this stuff was happening. And she told me something. She showed me something that has stayed with me the whole time. One was she talked about capacity. Not everyone has the capacity you do for friendship. But the way she described it was you're expecting too much of people. And then I felt bad. She's like, no, let me explain. And then she kind of explained it like capacity. They don't have the same capacity you do. Right. So I understood that. Great. But one of the major lessons that I'd like to impart today was she was talking about how if you really think about it, no matter what situation you're in, there's always, you can think of them as angels even. There's always someone there to help you. There is always a friend right there when you need them. They may not be the lifelong friend that will hang out with you forever, but they're there and they're there. And then when things are settled, poof, they're gone again. And this is not to describe the friends that disappeared because those people are dead to me. F those people.
Right.
But what I'm talking about are like, they are like human beings that are acting like angels. They are there to help you selflessly. They're completely there on all levels. And so this particular therapist that I was talking to that was helping me out told me about her personal experiences. Like she was in a situation and she described like exactly what happened with her. And I'm like, wow, actually, yeah, come to think of it, that is what happened with us also. Like strangers stepped in to help, right?
Right.
The reason why I'm telling you this, and trust me, it is actually a very uplifting, happy situation, is that, number one, Matt's okay. Thank you.
Hey-o.
But it's looking at, if you could like separate yourself and look away, look above, like step away and kind of look at it with a soft eye approach at life and realize that if you call, whatever you want to call it, synchronicity, higher power, whatever it is, everything is orchestrated actually quite beautifully, and everything does work out. It may not seem like it when you're in the trenches, but everything is working out. So, for example, I want to talk about my friend Wendy, and that there's a reason why I want to title this episode Super Friends. She's my super friend. The way I met Wendy was right after this period where I experienced this like evaporation of friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Poof, disappeared. It took me a while to like start getting back on my feet again and like getting strong again. But while I was still in the midst of it, and I was making friends here and there, that's fine. But what happened was this one day, all of a sudden, like a surge through my spine, I was like, I gotta call the local newspaper and tell them the project we're working on and ask them for support. And mind you, I come from LA. I come from the photography field, which was when I was in it way back then in that area. It was really, really tough. It was incredibly, can I use the word biased? Would that ring true, Matt? Like it was so, such a manly profession. And it was so like you had to know and be friends with certain people.
It felt very quid pro quo. It's like, what have you done for me if you want me to do something for you?
And who are you?
Yeah.
Like quite literally one day I went to, like there are different facets, right? There's commercial photography, there's art photography, and I was in both of those worlds. And one day I went to the art arena where all the gallery owners come together and they all meet in Santa Monica at the Santa Monica Civic Center, right? It's a big deal. Whatever. Like one of the gallery owners from LA that I knew of quite well, actually. I was at his booth and I said, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Fawn." And I reached out my hand and he literally looked at me like I was a disgusting rat from the sewer and refused to touch my hand, to shake my hand. And I understand not shaking hands, actually, especially nowadays, but this was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the look on his face. Like, you know how people like put up a corner of their mouth to show disgust? It was like that. And it was so incredibly hurtful, right? So anyway, that's the kind of mentality that like kind of stuck with me. So when I reached out to this newspaper, I was kind of expecting that same mentality, that same attitude, right? But so I called the local newspaper. By the way, this was not in LA. This was in another state, many states away. But I called them and I was expecting them to go, "Yeah, right, no." And immediately they said, "Yes, of course. We would love to do a story on you." I mean, I told them what we were doing, right? And we were doing the Art of Friendship thing. We had designed a website. We had designed this whole algorithm, thanks to Matt, where you would find your platonic best friend. It was like a dating, it was a dating website for platonic friendships. And we had so much effort put into this. The kids were involved in it. We got a grant to do a bunch of stuff. It was fantastic. And this was years before any other platforms did it. Anyway, so the newspaper said, "Yes, absolutely." And then they're like, "Let us send over one of our reporters." And so a reporter shows up and it's Wendy. And she sits on our couch. Remember, Matt? We made her sit on our couch and we were like talking to her. And she's all business. She's trying to like interview us and to get this story done.
And our kids are bouncing off the walls. And
yeah, and she's sitting there. And so in the middle of every sentence, I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're vegan too? We're vegan." Like, and I noticed all these synchronicities. I noticed all these things we had in common. And I often say I'm like a dog that's so happy to see you when I really like you. Like I'll jump all over you. And I felt like it was that kind of situation, like, "I love you so much." And it could be a little bit off-putting for some people. And so, but what's so beautiful about Wendy, one of the things that's beautiful is like she was open to it, but she was so kind and gracious. She's like, yes, let's finish the interview first. Do you remember?
I
It was
do.
something like that. I don't remember her exact words.
That's just it. Overwhelmingly from Wendy, I got this feeling of like even her choice of words, her diction, her everything. I was like,
Her everything.
this is a serious person. This is like, this person is taking this assignment very seriously, and here we are lightheartedly, and they're just trying to like get to the heart of it and document it and get their story together. Absolutely.
Right.
In a very almost razor sharpie kind of a way.
I mean, this is her art form, one of her art forms. Anyway, so I'm telling you this story to explain how we met. Had it not been me following that jolt I got one day, in the middle of the day, I was doing so many other things. All of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? I should call this newspaper. And I did. I did it right away. I happened to catch the right person when I did. And then boom, it was all set in motion. And usually, like when I meet someone I love, it's like, woo, yay, we're off. We're off and away. But Wendy has a very, 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 help me describe, Matt. She's very grounded. She's meticulous.
Right.
Thoughtful.
Yes. And not prone to moving quickly, if you will.
She
like
thinks-
making sure they
right.
played out all the angles.
She, I think, thinks and feels things through logically, whereas I'm completely illogical. But I'm very intuitive, and I'll just like, if I get a hint of intuition, I'm off with that, you know?
Right.
Why are you looking up like that?
I'm just looking up.
I thought you were being sarcastic. or something.
No.
All right.
Me?
All right. So what happened was, now, that was almost 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. When was it? Whatever, probably 8 years ago. I don't know. But it's been a very, kind of like the slow food movement. It's been a slow, beautiful relationship where we have really gotten to know one another. As I'm slowing down my speech too. I just want to say thank you to Wendy, because she's, and also not just thank you to Wendy. And by the way, please follow her. She's very talented. Not only is she an extraordinary writer, she's like a super athlete. I mean, talk about super friends in more ways than one. Super friend because she's truly a friend, but also she is like a superhuman, like superhuman strength, right? Because she's petite, right? You would say she's like petite. And I hate to describe people's bodies, but she's lean and thin, right? And she's so demure. Can I say demure?
You can say demure.
How would you describe Wendy? She looks very petite, right?
I think by and large, when you look at Wendy, it's almost like, what's a good word for it? Is it hard to see? Is it easy to overlook? And then she shows her power, and then you're like, ooh, dang.
Right. Like one of the last times we were together, we were moving, and because I've seen her since then, but I remember we were moving, and I wanted her to like take some of our stuff that we couldn't move with, and I was lifting all these heavy things, and then she's like, here, let me take that. And I was exhausted because I was really like no sleep, and it was a stressful move for me. And because I was trying to take care of everything myself so you wouldn't get stressed out.
Whereas I was just chilling.
And she's like, no, let me take that. I'm like, oh no, Wendy, let me do it. Because I'm like, oh, she's like, dainty. Even though I know she's a full-on athlete, like full-blown. Like she moved to the state we lived in because of all the marathons, the mega
Ironman, triathlons,
like all of
and
that
things.
stuff, the swimming, the running, like everything, the cycling. Like she's a machine. She's like built like a rock, iron. Right. So anyway, so she takes the load that I'm holding, and by the way, I was struggling, and she practically like does it with her pinky finger, I feel like. And I was like, and because we were kind of struggling, like, let me take it, no, let me take it, like that. We were very close.
Mm-hmm.
I sensed her like body, like her vibration, and I was like, oh damn, I forgot. She's super strong.
I forgot.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, it's the Persian in me that doesn't want to give any weight to someone else. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me take the burden of that weight that's not for you.
Right.
Let me do it. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be a burden to someone. So it was that kind of a thing. That's why I didn't want her to carry anything. But I was like, oh, she took it with such ease. I'm like, man. And then I felt bad because I was like, I'm really out of shape. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Definitely.
but it just reminded me of her super strengths. Anyway, I want to take this time to really have us think about the people in our lives and the way people come into our lives. And it may not be the way you think. You may follow one intuitive hit and not know really how that's totally leading you to your proper path, how that's leading you to meet a true friend. So that's what I wanted to get out today, was to remind each other of one another and of each other's presence, how we change each other's lives, and how to notice the incredible strengths that we all have. I wanted to talk about Wendy today. I'm so grateful that I have this friend. It's been a very long, slow process with this friendship being built, created with a good foundation. You
Well,
know?
she is very methodical, so I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. But what really makes me think about is, as far as like getting close, building friendships and that kind of thing, this style of friendship, I almost want to call it, I know you were talking about superhero friends, right? But it's almost like comic book superhero. It's even worse or better. But like, it seems like friends that I have that are similar, it's like they all have their own like power. And it's usually something half humorous and half like, dang, how do you do that? And it's usually in some aspect I don't have. So like, I almost want to say it's hard for me to be friends with someone who's really good at programming, because I'm not sure, because I feel, or if they feel, the sense of one-upsmanship.
Right.
But like, if somebody is really good at something that I'm not good at, it's like, go, please help me do that.
Yeah.
And when they recognize something similar in you, they're like, hey, help me with this, go.
Yeah. And it's what we've been talking about lately, is being humble. And the really humble people are the most talented, actually.
They can be, absolutely.
And that's a Wendy there for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, she's a phenomenal photographer, but I feel absolutely on either side, I do not feel a one-upsmanship at all. She's also a vegan, but her part of what she does is she's a vegan recipe developer. She's so talented. She is the mastermind behind my chocolate cake chocolate frosting. The chocolate frosting of my chocolate cake. She's the mastermind of the frosting. And people who are not vegan, who have tasted the frosting that we make, lose their minds. Their minds explode when I tell them it's made from a sweet potato, you know, or a yam. Like, that's Wendy. Happy Apple Vegan, you guys. Instagram, happyapplevegan.com. Please check her out. Every recipe, she makes things from tea. You know, it's amazing. She's amazing. Anyway, I just want to say thank you, especially since yesterday I had to leave the house. I was feeling so much rage, and I really needed someone. And, you know, we don't live in the same part of the country anymore. So it's like, I just texted her. I'm like, Wendy, I'm in the car. I'm crying. I'm feeling rage. I don't know what to do. She's like, I can call you in an hour. I'm like, okay.
And for the record, folks, I think it was 60% my fault.
It was really some stupid stuff, but I think I was picking up on worldly stuff. And
That comes
a
to
lot of it also came from I had a 4-hour meeting with someone that was quite challenging when they said some things that like were challenging. So, I was trying to have it just brush off of me, like no big deal, but all that stuff along with like dental stuff and stress of just taking care of the kids, making sure everything's okay. I just couldn't, and also politics, whatever's happening in our country, like honestly, I couldn't, I don't know. And then dealing with people who are totally gaslighting me at the same time regarding politics and all of this. It's like, and it's people I respect. It's just too much. It's too much. And I lost my mind.
But let's circle back.
Okay.
So what do you think? Why do you think you and Wendy connected?
That's a good question. But I don't know.
See,
I mean, I connected
I have my
because
own suppositions.
I want to know, but also I do want to say that I really respect you after all of these years. At first, you would say stuff and it would floor me. Like when you first met my neighbor, who was a good friend of mine, you said, uh-oh, she's a train wreck. And I was like, how dare you?
Yep, I dared.
But then I looked and I'm like, oh my God. I didn't see it because I was so blind to it, right?
Right.
But like you can see through people most of the time. Now you've kind of turned it off because you explained to me how you get an intuitive hit on people, like what it takes for you to really know a stranger completely, like how to read them. And, you've kind of tried not to do it as much the past few years because it does take a lot of energy to do it, right?
Right. And also I worry because we don't need to have friends on the most deepest level possible.
Well, remember we used to go out for coffee and you would read people and
That's
we would
true.
like that was our thing to do. We would people watch.
Mm-hmm.
And remember we were in on some island and from very far away, you noticed someone and you pointed them out and you said, this person is a Bible thumper. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And then you explained to me what that was. Someone that will all of a sudden, while they're having a conversation with you about anything, all of a sudden will come out with a Bible and start like tapping it and start reciting things from it. I'm like, we're on a beach. He's barely wearing any clothes.
But he had a backpack.
He had a bag. But like, how are we supposed to know? Like, we're at the beach, right? And sure enough, a couple hours later, we walked past him. And right when we did, this guy pulled out from his backpack a Bible and started tapping on it as he was talking to someone. But that's your talent. And I said, how do you do that? Like over the years, I'm like, how do you do that? And you said, and this is very interesting because there's a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. And I found out recently that Deepak Chopra was actually the first person to interview these kids. Severely, like totally autistic kids who are able to use telepathy with their mom or something. Like they read minds. They can be in one room. The mom is reading something just in her own head. She's reading a chapter, and in the other room, the child is typing what she is reading. Okay, that kind of telepathy, right?
Okay.
So anyway, but what you told me years ago was, because I'm like, how do you do that? I wish I could do that. And you said, well, to do that, you have to connect and love this person. Love this stranger. You like have to open up a love channel, and then you can pick all that up.
I'm not sure I said love channel, but
you
yeah,
didn't. But that's
it's
how
one of these. You have to almost live their life from birth until the moment that you meet them.
With love is what you said. You use the word love.
Oh dear.
You did.
Okay.
And so anyway, I was listening to an interview with Deepak Chopra, and he was like, actually, I was the first person to do these telepathy tapes, like this whole thing that's now a huge, I don't know if you've heard of them, Matt.
Mm-mm.
It's a huge podcast. They're like one of the biggest ones. Anyway, he's like, no, I was the first person to go in to see it because I didn't believe it. And he asked this kid, how do you do it? And he said, I love my mom. I love her, so I know. I'm like, oh my God, that's what Matt told me. Like even a stranger, right? So anyway, I totally like digressed. What were we saying? Oh,
Why?
I love and respect you, Matt. Back to the question of why do you think
Mm-hmm.
with Wendy? Because I've been hurt by people so much, so often. Now I'm like, I turn to you. I'm like, what do you think, Matt? And sometimes I don't ask you. Sometimes you totally offer it when you're really impressed by somebody. Either way.
Mm-hmm.
And you really liked Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an easy one.
And that made me feel more settled and calm because I really liked her. I'm like, you're my best friend. Where have you been? You know what I'm saying? And she's like,
Which is a
"Hi."
little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Hi.
So anyway, that was one reason.
Right.
But your question was why? What?
Why did you guys connect?
I don't know if I can answer that.
See, to me, it's almost logical and scientifical.
What?
Time.
What about it?
Well, so when she came over, didn't feel like she was in a hurry, and it felt like she had the bandwidth to listen to what we had to say.
She was present.
She was very present, very, not just present, not just like, at Starbucks ordering an iced macchiato. She was like, bam. She was like, this was everything to her at that moment. So she was extremely present. She had the bandwidth to accept what we had to talk about. And then she continued to have the bandwidth afterwards to continue to connect. And it wasn't necessarily the same amount, but honestly, it was time. It was the fact that, you were, I like to describe it as that timeless, placeless place, stealing from Suzanne Vega. You were both fixed in that moment in time, in that space, in that place.
And I had this, I was able to go with the flow of a certain understanding that I needed to have. Like I said, let's hang out. Oh my God, let's go out. And she's like, well, my schedule is quite challenging. So, I mean, I can go out. And she mentioned a month she could go out, which was like 3 or 4 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, what?
Nice.
But it made me pause and go, okay.
You've never really been in, like, I always reflect on experiences that I have. And there have been moments in time where I have been completely caught. I wasn't in that instance. I wasn't completely present in the same way that I think she was and you were. But are there other points in time that you can point at where you were in that kind of a space? Because I have.
In what space?
In that time, I call it that timeless, placeless place. I can remember there was a dance in college, and it was like, I was completely present. Completely. When I'm seriously deep in the code and I'm really writing the best code of my life, again, I'm in that place.
I want to say it's meditation.
And there you go.
And going back to Deepak Chopra, like he was in the same interview, they were like, how do you get to that state of spontaneous healing, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Like what needs to happen? And it goes back to the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza, because in his meditations, you learn to go in the space of nothingness, where you're nobody. You're nowhere. There's no time. Nothing. It's just black nothing, right? And that's the state you want to continue being in, practice being in, And then you get to the work of everything.
And that seems infinitely close to what they call the flow state for programmers.
Really?
Yeah.
So I'll keep going. And for example, with this interview with Deepak Chopra, they were like, how, to get to that point of spontaneous healing, for example. So he said, you have to get to that state, right? And then they're like, well, how do you get to that state? He's like, it's quite simple. Think about something that is enjoyable, for example. Like they were having a conversation. He's like, are you enjoying this conversation? Before you answer, don't answer me until I say go. So I'm going to ask you the question. Are you enjoying this conversation? Don't answer. Wait for me to raise my hand and then you can say your answer. And that state of that pause is that nothingness. So are you enjoying our conversation? Matt, don't answer. Okay.
I was until you said don't answer. No, I'm kidding.
But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay. So
yeah, I get it. But again, it's like you have, it's like you literally, you have the bandwidth, you have the time, you have the space, you have the place, you have the, you're feeling everything you need. You're not feeling anxious. You're not feeling sad. You're just present.
Right.
And I think that sets the table. That sets the table for these types of interactions to become greater and thus having the shared experience and having the bonding, provided both sides are into it.
And I was going to say, isn't that what I've been saying all along in a different way? It's like watch a movie without any expectations. When you meet someone, watch them like you're watching a movie. Without any judgment. Don't think, oh, I know where this is going. Or I know what their motive is. Ooh, they're a bad guy. They're a good guy. Ooh, nothing. Just a blank slate. But then I don't know if I'm the right person because I always get myself in trouble because I have like such an open-hearted
you have
gate for everyone, and then that gets me in trouble.
You have to watch the other side. You have to pay attention, and that sounds really wrong, but you have to pay attention to how the other person is doing, feeling, being, acting to get a clear sense of things.
Right, which requires some time.
Which again requires time, but oftentimes we're blinded by our own desires, and that's part of the problem. You've got to be like a good Buddhist with no desire.
Right. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Anything you wanted to add?
I think I added a fair amount. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. So again, we don't have commercials on this podcast, and this is not a commercial, but if you all want to eat healthy, if you want delicious food recipes, if you want to feel inspired, go to happyapplevegan.com. On Instagram, it's also happyapplevegan. Wendy, thank you. Love you.
Be well.
If you all need us at any point, please reach out. Have a beautiful everyday.